I was getting ready to do, to my left is Skip Brown, who is a member of the Board of Governors this year, newly elected. He is also chair of the PLUS program. This is a session where you're not going to hear a lot of talk from up here. That's the open part of the title. We will give you some perspectives just to start it out, but the success or failure, if you will, of this particular session will be dependent on all you folks that are in front of us in the chairs, because we're looking for ideas, input, discussion about the PPI. Just a little bit of history. I think you can see if you read the big agenda with all the pages that in 2005, CALLERLAB put in place what we call the PPI under the PPC. It's acronym hell, I know that. Program Policy Committee, the Program Policy Initiative. It's been recognized that we have valuable programs. We have basic, mainstream, plus, advanced, and all those other things all the way up to, what is it, C3? And we have lots of dancers out there, and we have lots of programs, and we have lots of successful callers, but we also know that the numbers aren't getting any better. When we looked at this question in the PPC 2 years ago, it was also acknowledged that there is a perception that CALLERLAB wants people to follow the CALLERLAB guidelines, that CALLERLAB does not want people to push the envelope of how to develop square dancing further. We do want people to push the envelope and develop square dance further. We want experiments. A question was asked in the meeting as in yesterday, what's an experiment? It can be anything your imagination goes to. I like to think that one possible definition of experiment is it's something that is going to help sustain additional growth in square dancing over time. It may be a different teaching order, it may be a different program, it may be a different audience. There's lots of maybes in there. So what this is all about is just first of all, show of hands. I assume you're all here because you've heard of the PPI. Show of hands, everybody heard of the PPI? Good, I think everybody's hand went up. How many of you are out there experimenting that are in this room? Who are doing what you consider to be experiments? For those of you that didn't, about what, half raise their hands? For those of you who did not raise your hands, even in your current programs, do you make any changes to how you teach, how long you teach, what order you teach in? Any hands want to go up on that one? That in itself is also an experiment. So I want to just make sure everybody's aware that experiments can be almost anything. So at this point, that's just to set the stage. I want to see if either Dana or Skip have any additional comments they want to make at this point.
And I think the goal of the PPI was to get new people in the activity. It's like earning money. You got to have $100 a week to live. We don't care how you get it, whether you mow lawns or flip burgers or be a brain surgeon. And it's the same thing with the square dancing. You want to use the mainstream or the basic or some other program. Anything you can use to get new dancers in off the street and dancing, we'd like to know about.
When we first visited, this has been many years ago, really, because we've been saying all along there are things we need to be doing different. The T2000 a few years ago was an attempt to do something different. And we found from there, some of the members want to do, some don't. What we've decided to do was, okay, there will be a assertion of trying to say, let's try to shorten the learning time. So by doing that, we need to shorten the number of calls that we have to teach to get people into the mainstream of dancing. And what we found was, yeah, that worked fine, but then all of a sudden everybody opposed to doing change. And I think that's kind of second nature to everybody. We like to know that we can improve, but we don't want to change to do it. And so what we thought from the Program Policy Committee was perhaps that we could get some successful experiments out there working. We can throw that in front of the membership and say, these are things that will work. Now maybe you feel better about change. And that would help lead the way into doing some changing later on by the whole membership, by the whole organization, and square dancing in general. So that was kind of the reason that we brainstormed the ideal of the PPI, was to get some ideals out there. Once we see some success stories and all the trials and errors, we have something to go before the membership and say, hey, this is something that's working. Now let's kind of build away from that. Because like I said, what we found by dropping 3 calls from the mainstream program was people don't want to make change. The current base does not want to make change because they don't know what's going to happen. So that's where we're at right now. Kind of leading into it, right now I'm experimenting. It's going pretty well. One of the clubs I do lessons for, I just happened to pick up a couple years ago. When they lost a caller due to cancer, they came to me and said, "Can you do lessons?" Well, I was pretty well full anyway, but the situation was such I felt like I should have to do that, go down and help them out. And they had 20-some people taking lessons. In our area, that's a crowd. That's a crowd of people taking lessons. And I started talking to them about what they did to get that. And they told me during the summer months they have a round dance cure there. It's out in the western part of Kansas. And she put on some party nights. Where they did a little bit of square dancing, a little bit of contra, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They didn't label it as lessons. They just invited their friends to come. They had people even go out and pick people up and say, "Come on, we're going to have a party tonight." And it didn't progress. They just simply every night they came and they learned something and went home. And if they didn't come the next week, no big deal. Or next time they did one, there wasn't even a set schedule. They just did them whenever they felt like doing one. And from that, they got names and addresses and so forth. And when it came time for lessons, they put out a bulletin saying, "We're starting lessons." And again, membership knew these people, and we'll come pick you up if you want to. And it worked. So right now, in my home clubs, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing party nights about every other week. And it's just doing like what we would do on a one-night stand. Have a few some two-step music in, some waltzes, some slow dances. Music doesn't stop. We just start at 7 o'clock. We go right up until 9 o'clock. I'm getting names. I'm getting people coming. And hopefully when I start my next set of square dance lessons or whatever I may try to do, I'll have an index of people to contact that we didn't have before. The hand up in front. Just a second. Let's bring Mike to you. As Larry, I don't know if you mentioned it before or not, but any comments we make, we'll make sure it's on the mic.
Right. So when Dana brings the mic down there, name and where you're from and your comment. We're hoping that this session itself can be part of Tools for Success.
I'm Stephen Cole. I call from in the metropolitan Seattle area in Washington State. My only question to you is, where do you do these nights, these party nights? Did you find another hall or someplace that's close? And how do you pay for it?
The party nights, we charge. We charge everybody comes in the door. And I've got square dancers coming just to see what we're doing. I charge them. They come in the door. They pay just like anyone else comes in the door. $3 a head. Others probably charge $4 or $5, but I do $3 because that covers our rent. And I really don't get any money out myself, but it covers our rent. We're using the same square dance hall we use for lessons for square dancing and so forth. I find a night that's open and I use it that night. So that's what we're doing. And normally, what I've found so far, we're actually having money left over so I can sock it away in case I have a night that the rent doesn't, the proceeds doesn't cover the rent. I've got something to cover it.
Actually, it's Scott Byers, California.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, Scott Byers, that's my first name is actually. I'd like to know statistically, how are you, first of all, advertising to get people in? Number two, what are the ages that you're bringing in? And do you have any information as to the socioeconomic status of the people?
The way we've been advertising, local paper, we put it in, just like we have a section in the local paper that always puts in all the square dance information about lessons and club dancing and so forth. We just added it to that. It's in entertainment side of the newspaper. Ongoing schedule. Things are going on, events going on. So it's in there. And the word of mouth from square dancers. From all over, not only my clubs, all the clubs in the area. We just passed it out to them, and we're not committing them to lessons to my club. They can go anywhere they want to. They don't have, most clubs in our area are not having lessons. So, just very few. So if somebody wants to learn square dance, they're not feeling threatened because they're probably not going to be able to get them in square dancing anyway in their own club because they're not having lessons. Makes sense?
On the microphone.
The question was, what do I call them when I advertise? I call it country fun dances. And then also underneath that I have in smaller letters two-step line dancing, country dances, waltzes, square dancing. And we've had 4 of those now. And the last one, I sat down with some of the people while some of the line dances were going on. I sat down and talked to people setting out. So what would you think we ask you to do square dancing? Come take lessons. We're ready. Let's go. So I think it's working. It's just now finding a time I can do square dance lessons without getting tied into the mold of the clubs, I guess you'd say, where they feel that it's got to be a given threat or a given schedule for the we got to do it this way. We got a lot of hands up. Still, on your one other question, the social and ages. The ages, I've had like 5 and 6 year olds right up to 70, and they're varied. I mean, what I was hoping to get was some families, and I've got some families involved. In fact, the other night I had a little girl, probably 8 years old, 9 years old, dancing, and I was doing squares, and she decided to sit out. So I just jokingly said, Montana, you want to come and call this one? She popped up and came up. And I whispered in her what to call. She called. Everybody loved it. Her grandmother is a square dancer in Wichita. And she ran me down last week and said, I heard you had my granddaughter call. And she was tickled pink. So those are some of the people we're getting. And the social side is what economic level come through, I can't really tell you. I mean, I haven't had enough conversations to tell you that.
Okay, other specific questions for Dana, or should we move on to another experience? One more question back here.
There are several. I'm John Geen, by the way, from San Angelo, Texas. By the way, my wife Nora here, who shares all my problems with me, especially when it comes to recruiting people. But what we're talking about here is basically marketing. There are several facets to this. There's the marketing facets. How do we get them off the street and onto the floor? Once we got them on the floor, then we're talking caller skills. How do you keep them on the floor? Then we get into another thing, too, that I think we should take into considerations as to what level we go. Our CALLERLAB levels of dancing, mainstream has, 50, the basic has about 60 moves. Mainstream has, 30? 20, I guess it is, around 19, 20. Anyway, marketing, getting them to the floor is interesting. There's many ways to go about it. Keeping them on the floor mainly depends on how far are you going to take them and how fast. People are being lost out of square dancing because if they miss a couple of lessons, they're just so far behind that it discourages them from going back is one of the facets. The others, that even as you get started, they're saying, gee whiz, I'm going to take 30 weeks to do this or 32 weeks to do this. And that discourages the heck out of them because they feel that until they got all this time in, they're not going to be able to just go square dance with people in other places. Marketing is fine. Once we get them on the floor, depend on the skill of the callers. We got some very skilled callers that will keep them there. Now the question is, how far do we take them before we can say, we're dancing? It would be nice if CALLERLAB would sanction a list, not necessarily establish a new one, but sanction a list that says, perhaps we could call it the an A list. No, that's a bad choice of words. Call it I don't want to use the word beginner, but a list of, say, 30 to 40 calls, wherein we can put this 30 to 40 calls out there and say, this is a dancing level. And let us reach that point of the dancing level. If you choose to go on, fine, we're going to go to the next dancing level, but in the meantime, let's hold dances at this level. And I'd like to know how many, if the callers were asked, if you had a choice of having a list of, say, 35, 40 calls, what calls would you like to see on it? And that might make a very interesting level of getting people to that level quickly and maybe keeping them.
It's an important question. It's a list question, if you will. I know Cal, before I have Cal go, if you will, I know that we also have the community dance program, and we can spend a lot of time on an existing effort within CALLERLAB to look at the teaching list, the time that we take to teach, and a bunch of other things. I want to bring us back a little bit to this is the experiment form, if you will. I think these lists are a form of experiment, but I'm happy to come back to this, but I want to bring up some other ideas on the table. We're sort of going down one path at the moment. And I know that we have a gentleman in here that's doing something I think a little bit different. Dennis over on the side. So Cal, if you can make your comments first, and then I'm going to, from you, I'm going to go over to Dennis.
Okay, we had an experiment going starting in about 1989 called the Community Dance Program, which had a list of 24 calls. Once we got into the people who were actually trying to apply it, we found out quite quickly that the list was really of about 12 common calls among the whole group that everybody used, and then things started to get kind of fuzzy. And I think this is a natural progression from the standpoint that each of us have certain calls that are our favorite. Now, the other thing is happening, if you go to Square Dance ABC and start taking a look at what's happening in that group, is the fact we don't necessarily need to have a single printed list that we all marry. If you go and talk to all of these guys, you're going to find that there are about 12 to 15 calls that we all use. And then after that, you get into my favorites and your favorites and somebody else's favorites. And I can tell you from statistical experience that once you get to about 15 calls, there are so many dances available and so many different routines available that you would entertain people forever. After that, it becomes your choice. What do you add to this core set? The core set was defined a number of years ago by the CDP committee, and I can't remember all the calls on it, but that core set is there, and it's only 12 calls. You could do that in a couple of nights, maybe one night.
My name is Dennis O'Neill. I'm with the Timberline Toppers up in Frisco, Colorado. And I'm a brand new caller. I've been working at this for 15 months, and you guys got a lot more experience than I do. You're better callers, you're better teachers, but I think you make it way too difficult. It ain't that hard. I come from a club that in 2005 we were having trouble putting 2 squares on the floor. We couldn't afford a teacher to come up because we're 70 miles away from anybody, and we lost $1,500 the year before. So I volunteered to teach, bought some equipment, and I said, our normal situation was probably what all of your clubs do. We start September. We were on a twice a week thing for 10 weeks, 20 lessons. And we generally got 3, 4, 5 people to come to our lessons. I said, I can do that, I think, just dancing with them. But we started thinking outside the box. I said, I can't be ready till January. This is in October. I said, I can't be ready till January. I've got to have some practice time. So our club decided to think outside the box, do something we'd never done before. And we decided we'd hold lessons from January through March. And then we got together through one of our president had gone to a leadership meeting in Portland and got the idea. We have a free chili dinner and an introduction to square dance. No obligation. We're not recruiting for lessons. We are recruiting, and we tell people we are, but our whole purpose is to recruit people just for a one night of entertainment. That's it. And make sure that the caller, in our case we use Bear Miller, if any of you know him, and he's just a lot of fun, a lot of high energy music, and we just press the fact that this is not your daddy's square dance. Okay? And we just have fun. And about 30 minutes into the fun, we tell them about our square dance lessons. And we look at the crowd, and in the past we used to charge $5 per person per lesson. The last 2 years we've charged $50 per person for the whole system. Okay? But we have fun. We put the fun back into square dancing. In the first year, I started with 39 students, graduated 37. 37 joined the club. That was nothing. We did the same thing this year. We started out with 61. I graduated 57. 56 joined the club, and I got 15 months into teaching. And I can tell you what made the real difference was that we made it fun. The whole club, not just me. It's a whole club activity. All my angels came and participated. But we took it even one step further, which I've talked to other clubs and they won't do. And that is, we start our lessons, and after the fourth lessons, 2 weeks, we have our regular mainstream dance. We give them a half hour just for them. I mean, the whole club is dancing. But we give the first half hour is just dedicated to what they know. 2 weeks later, they got 8 lessons. We give them an hour. Free dance. Don't charge them a thing. Just come, dance. And the third dance that we have, they've got 12 lessons. They come. The whole dance is geared around what they know. About that time, they got 35, 40 calls. We don't change. I don't change the CALLERLAB thing. I use Don Rouse's teaching order. He's only made a couple little changes, basically. But I use all the calls, as we progress. But the biggest thing, and you can ask any one of my new dancers in the last 2 years, what made the difference for them staying was coming to those regular dances, not being in a teaching phase, just being in a dancing phase, and becoming a part of the club. It ain't rocket science. You're talking about different clubs, different adding, subtracting calls and all that stuff. You got to put the fun back in the square dancing and have these people become a part of the club and be committed. They come to our regular dances. They just created 30, 40, 50 new friends. And I live in a resort community. Yeah.
Scott Byers, California. Dennis, I know all about your program, but for the benefit of everybody else, you talk about the fun of it and everything not being rocket science, but you haven't told them how you marketed it. And the marketing aspect of what you guys used is rocket science. It's pretty cool what you did. Would you talk to them about that?
Well, again, it's not rocket science. Our president said, okay, it's time to recruit. I want 4 names from everybody. Everybody has to give me 4 names. You see the plumber, the electrician, the gal at the checkout counter, your doctor, your hairstylist. Tell them we're going to have a free chili dinner with an introduction to square dance, no cost, no obligation. You're not really pushing lessons. Okay? The first time we did this, and we had 80 guests show up for our free chili dinner. That's guests, that's non-dancers. Out of that, I ended up with 39 students. They came just for the night of entertainment. And, you toss out free food, people show up where we live. But we pushed that. The free entertainment, the fun, just come out. It's cheaper than going to the movies, And then once you got them dancing and running around in circles and making stars and stuff, pretty soon you take a break and they're laughing and joking, and you say, in case you want to do some more of this, we start lessons in 2 days. We did this on a Tuesday night. Thursday night, I start the official lessons twice a week, 6:30 to 8:30. I start at 6 o'clock for those who miss a lesson, and need to come in for review. Most of my dancers showed up at 6 o'clock. It wasn't, they were supposed to be there at 6:30. They always showed up at 6. But recruit for the party, the fun, and show them what they can do, and give them some high upbeat, high energy music, and let them have fun. And they go, wow, I didn't realize you use this kind of music. Didn't realize you have this much fun. And then you have to get them out of the teaching mode and get them to become a part of the club. That's the key. I took lessons in 96 for 28 weeks. I think that's the stupidest thing in the world. They wouldn't even let me come to a dance for 28 weeks. What's wrong with it? You want me to come, but you won't let me come to your dance. I don't understand that. And 28 weeks, in some communities, that may be the only way you can do it. And Dave Williams, they have to do it because of the community. That's what works. But you have to get the people to your club. Your club has to dance with them. I go dance with other clubs. I end up at the back of the hall dancing with their new students. Those club members are not back there dancing with their new students. They're up in their little cliques with the people they think dance at their level. I'm back there having a ball with their new students who are scared to death. they're going to break down the square. You got to keep them around long enough to where they become good dancers. I think Jerry Junk says it best. They're either recreational dancers or hobby dancers. I'm working on recreational dancers, people who come, who could be doing something else besides square dance. I got to make it fun long enough, and I've got to get them tied to my club so they don't want to be anywhere else. And my dancers, you could go up there and ask them right now, what really made a difference for you staying here? It was coming to those other regular dancers, and we have guest callers, not me, so they get to hear a different caller. The week before that caller shows up, I send him a list. Here's what they know. The whole club is going to dance at whatever they know. And we mingle. We don't let 8 new dancers get by themselves. Our people mingle, intermix, so we always have some strong people. And they make mistakes. I never call them students. I call them dancers. And they don't make mistakes. They get very creative. But I'm the only one that can make mistakes. And like I said, I bought equipment in October of 2005. My first time in front of the mic was in front of 40 people. My first teaching, my first calling. Boy, did I make a lot of mistakes. Scared ain't the word for it. When I walked into that free chili dinner and I looked at 100 people, and I'm going, they better hire a caller, because I didn't want to run. Our club is 18 years old. We were at the risk of folding because of high prices of callers, which is necessary, but the high price of our call, just normal attrition, deaths, people are moving. We had to reach out and do something. We never contemplated, even considered, that January would be a good time for us to recruit. We always figured we had to get done in September, start in September, get done before the ski season, because nobody's going to come during ski season. It turned out to be the greatest marketing time of the year for us to do it. Just by accident, we were so desperate, we had to think outside the box and get different. But the key, is to having everybody involved, but putting the fun back in. I have dancers come up to me every night and say, this is just so much fun, and you're so patient, because we all have weak dancers, and I don't leave anybody behind. Everybody gets work. Between the breaks, I get those people who I'm having trouble, my angels. I say, you see somebody in the square that's having trouble, next tip, you push them to the front square where I can see it. Because I had 9 squares every night for lessons. I didn't even see the back 5, I didn't even know, but I had good angels back there who were helping, and every time they had somebody who was having trouble, the next tip, that person would be in the first 3 squares.
Okay, Randy, you had a comment?
Randy Doherty, Mesa, Arizona. Pat you on your back, Dennis. I guess I have a couple of questions for you. What you said fun was the main ingredient. What kind of calling skills or methods did you develop yourself to transfer that FUN to the new dancers? Were you using routines? Did you sight call? Did you memory call? What kind of method of calling did you use while you were teaching your classes? I guess that's my first question. The other one is, when you had your party dances with other callers, was it on the same night that they were normally coming on, or did you have a big drop-off if it was a different night? That's a two-folded question.
To answer the second one first, when those other callers come up, those were on our regular dance nights. Those were not party nights. So those were we dance mainstream on the first and third Saturday of every month. So on the first and third month, we are a guest caller club. So whoever, and we book 2.5, 3 years in advance. So whoever the caller is for that particular night, he gets to deal with our new students. Okay? And we don't charge the new dancers. Like I said, I just send that caller, say, okay, we're going to, if you're the first caller, in the series, the first half hour of our dance is going to be geared around what these people know. The whole club is dancing and what they know, and then after that, they can stay or leave, whatever they want to. Most of them hang around for about an hour. The second dance that we have are a regular mainstream dance. Again, we're only dancing for an hour at what the students know. And then after that, we move on to our regular dance. The third one is from the third, fourth, and fifth dances are totally geared around whatever the students know at that particular point. But it gives them a different color, a different voice, a different style of moving things around, and they almost always say, wow, he's fast, because, yeah, he's a caller. I don't consider myself a caller yet. I'm a caller who's trying, I'm a new guy trying to learn how to call so that I can be a better teacher. I have no formula. I don't have I just put in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours studying what the next 3 or 4 calls I'm going to teach and how to explain it in 3 or 4 different ways. And like I said, we have fun, and we're going to make mistakes, and I don't get mad at anybody making mistakes, because as far as I'm concerned, they don't make mistakes. They do, but I look for every opportunity to put some levity and some laughter into the program and have fun. And it's amazing how hungry they are when they're having fun. If you take the fun, I've angeled at our lessons from the time I learned, and we had the normal get 6 or 8 couples start, end up with 2. Why? It wasn't because the caller wasn't necessarily a good caller teacher, but there just wasn't much fun. It was, you got to do this, you got to do that. We walked through this, and it's just boring. I try to have fun. I don't sight call very well. One of the first calls they learn is repair your square. Get back wherever the hell it is you belong, because I don't have a clue. Because I've got a square here and I got a square here, and I work and I see this one has a little trouble. I say, stop, wait a minute, turn around, let's walk through this here. Let me get you through it. And then I do this 4 or 5 times, and I have lost total control. I don't know where everybody. We just dance, and then I say, refix your squares, because I don't know how to do it. I'm living proof that you don't have to be a great caller to hang on to students, but you have to create an atmosphere that they want to be there. And if they're having fun, we've all been kids. The teacher that created the most excitement in your class is the one you paid the most attention to, not the one who beat you up with the ruler, right? The Catholic learn thing. So I just take every call, whatever's the next one's on the list, and we work it. I do something different. I've read every book that CALLERLAB and all the new caller stuff has that says, start with your tough one first and go to the easy ones. I teach them 2 or 3 easy ones, and I save the hard one for the last. And I give them about 15 minutes of that hard one, and I don't expect much out of it. The second night, I start with it. And now they've kind of got it in their head a little bit. And I push them all to buy, and this is not, I have no connection with these people, but I tell all my students, buy the Square Dance CD from Square Dance CD. It takes them from mainstream through plus, allows them to break each move down, and probably 90% of my students have bought that CD, and they look at it an hour before lessons, or an hour before dance when they have a particular move that doesn't make sense, because some people are visual. I can read the Square Dance books. We give them the Square Dance book from Palomino, and some people are great about it, and some people aren't. I give them all the calls for 2 weeks in advance. Here's what we're going to do for the next 2 weeks.
Okay, I hate to break in at this point, but we got about 25 minutes in this session, and what I'd like to know is if there's somebody else doing something a little different out there to talk about.
Mel Mitchell's my name, from Sidney, Nebraska, and I'd like to look at a little bit of history. In 1960, when I was coursed in by my wife to go to a square dance class, we had 10 basics that we danced, and we were dancing with the club. Now, it cost me $10 for that period of time. And, of course, back in 1980, $10 was a lot of money. But I'd like to say this. I think we should have a good foundation under our basic program. And if we have a good foundation, that means you don't change nothing, because if you take one block out, the damn thing's going to fall down. And we don't want that to happen. And I think that's one of our problems today. We need something that's good and solid to put our program on. And then, like the gentleman just before me said, have fun. You can have fun all kinds of ways, but be sure it's good and clean fun. Now, as long as they're laughing and they're having good fun, and when they start tapping their foot when you play the music, you know darn good and well you're on the right track. So, hey, you got a good program. Don't quit it. And you know, we always learn by somebody else's little ideas and by somebody else's mistakes. So it's a good idea when you get up and go to a place like where he's at to evaluate it like it should be evaluated, and then go home and practice what you learn. So I guess maybe I better hush up, or I could talk all day about it. That's 46 years of doing this business.
One quick thing, and then we have another speaker.
Yeah. As soon as I get done with the lessons, which is very intense because we do the 20 lessons, I now start workshops once a week where we can just review all these things, because those calls at the very end, the spin chain throughs, the spin to tops, they don't get a lot of work on that. So they really love the workshops. And then they can go dance and come back and say, can you work this one a little bit more? So that's an important part of the whole thing. So.
Thank you very much. Next.
Sorry for my bad voice today. This dry air destroyed my voice. I'm Hiraga of Japan, JSDA. Mr. Nishimura there is representing this Japan Square Dance Association. And the Japan Square Dance Association, we have, before CALLERLAB announced the PPI 2 years ago, 2 or 3 decades, we have been running these basic 53 movements. And the result, maybe you can see in the handout, that historically the basic was a dance. And based upon the basics program, we have been developing to mainstream and plus. And because of using basic dance program for years and years, we got success. In the back of the paper, you will see the square dancers number is still growing. So this is before we had the PPI. And if American people thought that the mainstream or plus is the whole program which you have to start from, we didn't think so, and we started only basic, and then added at a higher level. So please look at the backside of the statistics. That's the result. Thank you very much.
John Kaltenthaler, Pocono Pines. My comments are commendable to the gentleman who's talking about how he does it with his club. I too live in a resort area. We have one traffic light, and that's fairly recent. I have a slightly different situation in that I have probably 3 party nights during the summer months, and then I have maybe 6 or 7 during the year. And we vary anywhere from 1 to 5 squares of people. We don't have a club. We don't have any way to incorporate them. We are opening up a new community center, and I'm hoping we will be able to establish a club. But the point is, I don't have a lot of calls that they use, and it's perhaps a modification of the CDP, Community Dance Program, but you don't need an awful lot of calls. One of the problems, I think, with the CDP is that we tried to make a program out of it, and the callers really weren't good enough to use it. They felt they had to do all these things. They had to do contours, they had to do lines, they had to do rounds. They don't know how to do them. It's amazing to me what you can do if you can do a circle and a star. You don't need an awful lot beyond that to have a good time. The dancers come up to, some of the dancers in Lake Naomi area have been dancing to me for 25 years. And it's interesting to note that one of them will come up and say, John, if we came a little bit earlier, could you teach us another call? I haven't taught a new call for a long time. So I said, sure, I'll teach them an alamandar. They thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's not difficult, it's not rocket science, but it's fun for them. And they said, how do you do that? How do you keep it straight? And you have to, with a smile on your face, say it's magic or something. You don't have to be a great caller. You can use simple basics and dance them to the music, and they will enjoy it. Dancers are not bored. Callers are boring.
My name is Dave Williams. I live in Salida and a club caller for the Monarch Mavericks. And I'd just like to endorse Dennis's program here because we, even though I've called about 22 years and I'm 76 years old, I have reached that point where I can recognize success when I see it. And when I see success, I want to copy that success. Our club accepted this program immediately when we saw it, and it was immediate success. And I understand we're the third club to accept this. There's one after us, so we're working on, 4 clubs that have this same program. It's an excellent program. It's really the way to get people introduced into your club on a social level. You can acquaint with students on a dancer level, but once you really get them mixed and you get acquainted on a social level, you build a stronger tie with these people. Now, we do basically the same thing. The first part of our program is we're a contract club. We contract for these callers, and they're informed of this list that they can call and that the new dancers have. And hey, these new dancers come out and they really have fun. It's a great program. I would encourage everyone at least keep an open mind on this and at least try it.
So this
and in your own club, see that it works.
Sure. Before we hand it off to another person, this comes under the category of something that seems to be sustainable. Is it possible that you or Dennis or a group of you could put together a report on this that could come into CALLERLAB that we can publish?
We intend to, and Mike Oliveira is also in on this program.
So this is the kind of thing we
intend to do this. There is even an extension that we could do with this, which I intend to do with my club under PPI, is come up with a list, that what I call a workshop list. We have 2 categories here. We have people that want to maintain every list as printed. We have other people that want to make a simplified entry list. What I've come up with, I hope, is the best of both worlds, is what I call a workshop list. When a caller comes to your club, you hand him this workshop list, or better yet, mail it to him with his contract. And what he does, he looks at this workshop list. He can still call everyone on that program, but the one you got on this workshop list, he must workshop before he calls it. And everybody knows there's a number of calls that are not effectively taught, like couples trade from out-facing lines or couples hinge. You can call that, and you can break any club in the country. But I'll tell you what, this program is going to work. We intend to write it up as a program, and we will get this to you.
That'd be super. Can we go to Jim Mayo in the back next? I know we've got several hands in the air. We'll try to catch everybody.
Jim Mayo from New Hampshire. One of the problems that we encounter may be unique to New England, but we find dancers are not really eager to go along with the pace of teaching that gets new dancers comfortably into their group. They tend to pick off the best of them, put them into the good squares, and rush the whole program. I'm curious at how long you take before you feel the new people are comfortable part of the existing group.
Before I get there, to answer your question, our club has already offered all this information. It's on squaredancing.com/Denver. It's the Denver Council website. If you go to Denver Council website, look at news, there's a link there for recruiting ideas that our president put together. All this information is there. I also sent the first year stuff. It's on Winning Ways at CALLERLAB.
Okay, an earlier part is on Winning Ways. Great to hear.
Yeah. To answer your question, I got them finished, and I want to do like 8 workshops with them before we take them traveling because of where we live. They're finished.
How long to finish was the question.
2.5. They took 20 lessons, and then I'll do 8 more workshops with them, because that's when the weather changes for us and we can get out of Dodge, so to speak.
So did I hear that correctly? The total duration is about 2.5, 3 months?
Yeah, 2 months, yeah.
2 months.
So, but that gets them, and we go as a club so that we're always there with them and supporting them. You know, that is very important for the club to support the new dancers, because I think that's the biggest problem that square dancing has, is people's attitude. I don't want to dance with this new guy because he's not at my level. I want to dance with you because you're at my level. So your new dancers get left, and then they feel bad, and then they walk out the door.
The question was club night, class night the same?
We teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays this time. Our regular dances are first, third, and mainstream are first, third Saturdays, but our lessons are Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay, I'd like to go a completely different direction. I've been running for 14 months now a group called Impulse Squared. There is no one who comes to those dances that is over 30. I'm Bob Riggs from the Denver area. Thank you. So this group is made up, we had a core of folks that wanted a recreational dance that were young. I've been running off of a principle in my head that we all want to dance with our peers for a couple of years. And when we look around, we see groups that are aimed at families. But if you look at the families, they're all young and parents. When you look at teens and young adults, you don't see much. I have what I consider a successful group that consists of dancers and at least one young lady who's calling, who's working her way into gaining calling knowledge within that age group. I can't say it's wonderfully successful, but I contend that if we have in our head the principle that everyone, including myself, wants to dance with my peers, that I will begin seeing commonalities, whether that commonality is engineers, people who work for utility companies, and we can all identify the clubs that came out of these sources, or teenagers or young adults. This particular group meets twice a month. Last Monday we danced, and you have to bear with it, 2 couple, 3 couple, 4 couple, 5 couple, West Coast Hex. We danced some Contras. We did Solidog. We did a couple of other round dances that they want to learn. Huge variety, nonstop for 2 hours, lots of energy, and that kind of thing goes on twice a month. That's what we do, and they're having fun.
Comment about the students doing a lot of leadership?
Yeah. One of the things that I'm focused on is that I'm a believer that these groups have to run themselves. They don't necessarily have all the skills to do all the calling, but the core people are doing the recruiting, they're doing the organizing. I have basically arranged for a hall and do about 50% of the calling, and I deal with the money situation. But beyond that, I'm trying to encourage and mentor them into creating their own organization. It's not me running a club. And that's something I think is terribly important, is you cannot focus on, it's not you, it's all about them.
Take a question.
Actually, no, I have kind of a statement. We're starting something similar. Scott Byers, California. We've started putting together a group called Gold Rush in California, which is basically going to be the same thing. Our target market is 21 years of age, and we're going to be doing basically the same thing. Very high energy, except probably our music is going to be more towards hip-hop and that kind of thing, more modern type of music. We're going to be introducing a lot of that. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm working on setting it up as a 501c3 so that I can get corporate sponsorship and get these kids traveling all over the world. And that's what I'm looking to do. But what he's saying works. I mean, I've been doing that for quite a while, is working with teenagers, and I know that if you get the teenagers involved, you get the teenagers in a regular adult square dance club and watch that club come alive. I mean, it does. It just comes alive.
Did you have anything else?
Well, the only other comment that I would make relative to that would be that I have not found to be the music issue to be the issue that everybody says it is, because these guys get to define music, and it's not hip-hop. It's 60-year-old really good music that is some of their favorite music in my arena. In my arena, music is not the issue. We get to pick stuff, and their favorite singing call is Riverboat. And they call it. I don't. I do once in a while, but their point being is it's not all about music. It's not all about dress. It's not about all the excuses we've been using. It's about getting people to dance with people.
Dana.
Yeah, Dana Shermer. Comments been given so far has been great. I think we've heard some really good ideals and thoughts. I'd like to kind of change the guidance again and ask, is there anyone out here doing anything with the ABC program or the blast system or things like that? We'd like to have some comments about those because, again, these are experiments. I think we got a couple of hands down there. I think they can probably explain it better than I can. But it's a system that's being used in Texas very well. And Larry, you want to chime in? You can.
Well, yeah, the hands that went in the air on ABC, would one of you gentlemen like to talk about ABC?
Randy Doherty, Mesa, Arizona. The ABC is a little bit of an offshoot of the community dance program, actually. The community dance program was 22 or 25 calls. The ABC is really putting on, we used to call them one-night parties. Now we call them square dance parties. And you give a sequence of 3, the A dance, the B dance, the C dance. You have the main core of 12 calls, but then on the A dance you add what I call 2 or 3 of the meat and potato calls. The A one has like couples circulate, veer left, bend the line in it. You get them doing that the very first night. It's almost unheard of doing couples circulate the first night. On the B class, we get into more meat potatoes. We do like star through, California twirl. That's kind of the meat and potatoes there. On the C, we get into doing grand square with them. More splits and separates. So you really basically have an A dance, B dance, C dance. You let people come any time of the year if you're doing this, and you just do the A dance, the B dance, the C dance. 6 months later, they're back at you. Maybe they only came to the A, and now you're doing the B, but you still have the same core of calls that you reteach every night. My numbers last year, I work in a adult RV park. Last year, I never ran less than 8 squares for my dances, which were a combo of all of the A, B, and C, which would be like a CDP. So it was very successful for me. I was on Saturday nights. They danced in many different parks, sometimes to other callers, but they knew when they came on the Saturday night, they were going to get the A, B, and C all put together. And we used to start at 7:30, quit at 9:30. They danced till 10 o'clock. These were seniors. They wouldn't go, not a soul left at all. It was unbelievable. This year, though, I was disappointed this year. We didn't get the recruitment that I thought we were going to get of the new people coming in. We only danced about 4 to 5. The biggest crowd was 6 squares this year. And what I found out was the ones that did ABC that didn't want to go on, they were with us this year again. But a lot of the ABC people were teased by that dangling carrot by their friends or by another caller or whatever, and they went on, and we never saw those. So our numbers were almost half to two-thirds of what we did last year. And that's basically it in a... Okay, go ahead, Cal.
I think it's important to realize that ABC is a marketing concept. And a lot of people focus on the list. Don't focus on the list of calls. It's a marketing concept. It's a concept that says we don't hold lessons. We hold beginner parties. We hold introductory dances. The contents of that list are not what's important because most of these organizations, ABC organizations, are going to stand independently. They're going to come to your dance. We know that square dancers typically 80% of the time only attend their own club dance. Concentrate on the fact this is a marketing concept. You're having them come to a dance. One dance stands alone. This is the important thing he said. It's there. I'll tell you point blank that if we all came up with our own list, that if I correlated all your lists, at least 12 of those calls would be 90% the same calls. And so I get frustrated when we talk about ABC and say, we must have this list because this concept is we must be able to dance with each other worldwide. The answer is if you have that few calls, it's very easy to teach your set of calls. It's the concept that's important. Okay, the second point is what this guy over here has got going, and that is the word social. You know, if we do nothing else in ABC but create social clubs, we will have created something. Okay, I want to pick up on one more point, and then we'll go from there. And that's the word workshop. Okay? We had, at one time, every dance that I called, I had a workshop tip in the middle of the evening. And someplace along the line, we gave that up. I have talked to dancers all over the Denver area, and I said, would you mind if we do a workshop or we do a walk-through tip in the middle of the night, or if I have something in the way of a cute piece of choreography that I don't think you would be successful doing, okay, would you mind doing a walkthrough? All right? Last concept on ABC. Most of the people who are doing ABC that I talk to are using routines. That was a question you asked of him. And basically, you talk to Jerry Story, talk to Nasser. Routines are not bad, guys and ladies. Routines are great for dancers because the dancers get out there, they come up and request. They say, well, when I do one-night stands for people 3 and 4 times a year, this is basically an ABC style of stuff. I have people come up and request dances. Are you going to do the dances that does thus and such? And you talk to Jerry Story, he calls them poems, and I think maybe that's a good point. But he's got a whole cookbook that he has published out there on the web of his poems or his dance routines. And when he goes back to the dances, he calls routines. Not extemporaneous caller. He's back to the old pattern that we used to use 50 years ago. I'm going to call the Arkansas Traveler. He doesn't give them names, but basically he has these routines he's got down there. And they're out there published for you. If you want to go look at them, they're good. There's a lot of neat stuff there.
So there's a lot of good information in the room. I don't want to hold anybody up from lunch, though. And it is 11:45, and I think that's when it says lunch is. But if there is somebody that'd like to make a last comment, a couple of last comments before we run, that'd be great. Back of the room. Dana's got the microphone for you.
Thank you. Look, here I go again. Japan Square Dance Association announced that we will run PPI program from September last year. It is just 25 movements. No ocean wave, no goal post, just square through and ground square only, and with 25 movements. And their association is requesting all of the clubs. By the way, we have 420 clubs all over Japan. they are requesting, experimenting the 25 movements, and before August, end of the August this year, we will receiving all the information, and we will let you know all the results. Thank you very much.
One last comment was there? This last one.
You're going to find that no matter what your program is, you're going to have to tailor that program to fit your audience. And I like to finish up with kind of a humorous thing, because I started to do a one-night stand one time for a big Christian group. I didn't realize who I was teaching, and everybody there was physicians, surgeons, or dentists. So I didn't know that. I couldn't get these people through a simple figure, a mixer that turned left and turned right. And finally at the break, this dentist come up to me and he says, "You're really having trouble, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "Let me put you wise to what you're wrong." He said, "You don't know your audience." And he said, "These are all physicians and surgeons." He says, "Left and right are exactly opposite to a dentist or a physician. If you think of it, you're looking at the guy, it's exactly opposite." He says, "You got to do something to correct that." So at the end of at the start of the next dance, I said, "Everybody that's left-handed, move your wristwatch over to your left hand. That's the one you don't shake hands with. Now, turn to your partner and shake hands. That's your right hand shake." So the rest of the evening, I went wristwatch and handshake. And hey, we had no trouble whatsoever. So you have to know your audience, you have to know your target, and you also have to tailor it to your dance hall, the size of it, and so forth. But don't be afraid to tailor your program. And the one that Dennis brought up here is a program that can be tailored. And I tell you what, try this, guys. It will really, really work.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to thank you all for being here. I hope it opened your eyes to some things, gave you something new, maybe some nuggets, caused you to start thinking. Go out there and know your audience and figure out what works and let us know. Thank you.